What I would say is for the humanitarian community, including Save the Children, for us to truly deliver this life-saving need, we need unfettered, unobstructed access to areas such as Mariupol to really reach those that, are acute in terms of needs. And of course, as you've seen to date, Mariupol has certainly been a real challenge in order to get access.
Yes, and so many times when Russia has said they would open up corridors, potentially, in principle, allow people to leave, they've actually attacked them as they have been trying to leave, which must make the job of agencies like yours almost impossible.
I'm aware of some reports, unconfirmed reports around that nature. But what I can tell you is there are people that have got out of Mariupol. We actually have met several families, including children, who have spent weeks in bunkers and basements, cowering from bombardments and ground fighting. And you can clearly see just from the fact they cannot maintain eye contact that they're clearly distraught, and particularly children, where this, war really affects them both physically and psychologically.
Yeah, because I can only imagine that ongoing impact is going to be something that'll be dealt with for many years to come. Give us a sense at this point of the conflict, just the number of children that have been displaced.
Well, it's 2/3 of the whole country's children have been displaced. So we're talking 5 million children have been displaced from their homes. And majority of the children are accompanied just by their mothers. And there are huge needs right across the country, not just in the areas where families have found sanctuary or temporary residence, but in these really hard to reach areas. But for us to get to those hard to reach areas, we need access, and that requires efforts by all parties.
What sort of access are you able to accomplish at this point?
Well, there has been some success with humanitarian convoys that have got into some of the conflict-affected areas. And as your report was recently saying, those former occupied areas, such as Sumy and to the north of Kiev, international partners and local national partners are now really trying their best to try and meet those needs, which clearly are really high.
How do you manage to coordinate when families, as you point out, mainly just women and children, are sheltering in various areas? We're seeing them in public train stations. How do you coordinate and understand where the need actually is?
No, it's a good question. And Ukraine is a developed European country with a strong government system. And they're actually very well coordinated, supported by the international community, particularly the United Nations and international NGOs. But of course, you've always had that local civil society that were in Ukraine at the time of the escalation of conflict on 24th of February and are still there to date. So it's one big humanitarian family.
Yeah. We're noticing in your reporting of hundreds of schools that have been targeted. What sort of disruption does that create?
Well, firstly, all schools were closed after the 24th of February by the local authorities, and children were encouraged to learn online. As we all know through our COVID experience, learning online is a challenge. So you imagine these children have had to try and learn online during COVID, and now they're being told to learn online when they probably don't have laptops or tablets because they've just left their homes with just the clothes on their back, and they certainly would not have internet access.
Yeah. Lots of children have fled Ukraine. What is Save the Children doing with neighbouring countries and at those borders with Ukraine to try and safeguard children who are making it out of the country?
Well, Save the Children has made it its paramount, focus to ensure governments are calling for safeguarding measures at all the border crossing points. I mean, this is just horrendous to see so many children leaving, majority with caregivers or parents, but leaving the country and not knowing whether they'll go back to school or play with their friends again. So Save the Children has called for a moratorium of all neighbouring countries to hold firm on prevention of children being fostered or indeed adopted, and to focus on finding their parents and reuniting them.
Yes, because it's interesting, in those cities where Russian troops have withdrawn, some families are trying to return to their homes even if they have been badly damaged.
Now, we are seeing quite a number of families actually returning into the western part of Ukraine. For many, it's to return to their livelihoods or try and retrieve their possessions. You can imagine now yourself if you had to evacuate your home without the opportunity to gather your belongings, years and years of treasured possessions, let alone your livelihood, if it exists just in that country. It's definitely something that the people have to take a choice and decide upon whether it's safe to do so, or indeed it's actually needed.